Hey everyone, welcome to MAHA Mom's podcast. And today we have a bunch of guests. So it's a very special time. We are welcoming Simple Hopeopathy Wellness, and that includes Heather and Nicole and Sandra, and then of course Christine. Hello everyone. I'm
Hello.
going to do a brief intro so we know about them. So Simple Hopeopathy Wellness is a collaborative effort between certified practical homeopaths, ignited by a shared passion for educating and empower families with the life-changing knowledge they have gained and they use in their daily families and their own practices. So Sandra Nardoni lives in Indiana with her husband, and they have 3 adult children and 1 adorable grandchild. Well, I'm so lucky. Nicole Pavlik, her and her husband they call New Jersey their home, so she's with us, and is an active homeschooling and medical freedom mom to 7 children. And Heather Strickland, hers residing in Northeast Ohio, with her husband, has 1 adult son and a very spoiled Aussie doodle. So the first time I read that, I was just laughing. And they're all proud graduates of just is it Gisette?
Joette.
Joette, sorry. Calabrese's Academy of Practical Homeopathy, and they're currently enrolled in her mastery program. So that's big, that's huge. While each runs their own practice, they're offering classes and they're working with clients. They came together nearly a year ago to create Simple Hopeopathy Wellness, which I love that name, by the way. And their name is inspired by 2 heartfelt quotes shared by their students. One who expressed that homeopathy brings simplicity to your healing, and another one who, after seeing the profound impact homeopathy had on her child, she suggested it be called Hopeopathy because of the hope it provides when many other approaches have failed. So in August 2024, these amazing women, they launched the Simple Hopeopathy Show podcast. And by December 2024, they introduced their educational platform, the Hopeopathy Help Hotline. So since then, they've been on an exciting and fast-paced journey, adding countless new features to the membership with many more exciting developments in the works. So these are 3 powerful women that have really brought this medical freedom and alternative healthcare to the forefront. And I absolutely love that because, as you guys know, I've been doing this since 1990, and I'm just so in awe of you guys. So this is great to have you on. And you, of course, Christine, who I love.
They have been my inspiration, so I'm very happy to have them here. And so I'm just going to start with the first question. And what homeopathy has done for me is so profound, and I want to hear from them the things that they have seen so that we can share with other people about what is actually possible, because I feel like after having the education that I've been getting over the last few years, that really anything is possible. Like, I've just seen so many incredible things and heard stories in my classes about other, students and what do you call it? I would say like encounters that they've had with people and, the strides that they have made. And I just was hoping to share more of their stories and what they have seen so that people can get a better understanding of what homeopathy is, because it literally could change the world. And I say that with confidence, and everyone needs to have it in their home. So that's where I say.
Absolutely.
So I don't know what order you want to go in, if you want to go in the order of like the windows. But my first question for you,
Do you want to do Sandra, Heather, me?
whatever's good for you guys.
You guys?
Sure.
Yeah, let's just do that. That way we always know the order.
Okay. So my first question is, what's the most impressive thing that you have seen homeopathy do?
Okay. I will dive in with that one first.
Ah.
That's a hard thing to choose because I've seen some pretty amazing things. But probably my favorite was a friend of ours who actually was a friend of my daughter's. He is not from the United States, so he normally lives in another country, and he was here visiting, and we found out that he had drowned when he was 9 and had been dead for like 3 minutes and had been revived. And ever since that time, and I don't know if he had been in the States, I don't know if the medical, prognosis would have been any different because of where he lived. But he was told that he would always have, his lungs would always be half full of fluid. and because they couldn't get it all out. And so he was basically just given like, and he was in the States for several months. So I don't know, he probably just assumed he would never get better. He could not exercise from that point forward. Every time he would get like a cold, it was life threatening because it would go, if it went into his lungs or whatever. And we were talking just one night and I found this out and I was like, oh my gosh, that's horrible.
My wheels are turning.
And of course, every time and that's the big, I'll tell you what, that is the difficult part about being a homeopath. Because what most people don't understand about homeopathy is that homeopathy has cured every single thing known to man in someone. It hasn't cured every man, and that's part of a great quote by one of the people that we have learned from over the years, called the Doctor's Banerjee. But it has cured, everything. And so it's really hard when you listen to people talk about what's going on with them. You're like, ah. Every time. And so I'm kind of like doing that internally as he talked. And then he ended up saying basically that he would try homeopathy. And over the course of 6 weeks, he basically every day he would wake up, he would take this medicine twice a day. And every day he would wake up and have his mouth full of phlegm, and he would clean out his mouth. And at the end of 6 weeks, he said, I can breathe again. And he lived at the time in Colorado, and he was able to ride his bike like 800 feet in elevation up to his house from his job. And he said, this is the first time I've ever been able to do that. You gave me my life back, basically.
Wow.
And so he's been able to do normal things ever since. And who knew? I mean, he was 23 when I gave him that. So that happened when he was 9, very old injury. And I didn't even know. I mean, I thought it could work, but it wasn't a guarantee. And I just think that's an amazing story. And that's what homeopathy does for people. It gives them their lives back. And I love it. It's so much fun.
And it's incredible that it could be that far, like in the past, and it still work. Like, that's what I love too.
Yeah. He was not able to, he couldn't ride his bike on a flat surface for more than 15 minutes without having to stop and catch his breath and possibly have an issue. And so to ride his bike 45 minutes up the mountain and be able to do that was a miracle.
Wow,
So,
that's awesome.
yeah.
Amazing.
I love that. That's why when Lori said something about being deaf, I was like, oh, we can fix that. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but it's worth a try. I
It's
really
worth a try. Yeah, because
Well.
everything else is helping.
Yeah.
That's what
can't hurt to try.
your patients
And Heather, what do you
and other things.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with Sandra that it's really hard to just pick one story, but I'm going to go to one of my early on successes, and that was helping a friend of mine who had been suffering with severe eczema that was kind of covering about 80% of her body at the time. And it was the itchy where it was weeping. Like she would try to wrap gauze around it to keep it because it was really, really awful. And it was so itchy that she couldn't even sleep at night, which was then affecting her, like her whole day, like her mental health. When you don't sleep, obviously your whole day, just everything gets worse and worse from that. So she had been trying a lot of different modalities for a little over a year. And finally I was like, will you please just consider giving this a try? Because nothing else is helping you. Like, would you just consider it? And she was finally at the end of her rope enough to say yes. And so within about 2 months, she was almost fully clear. And it was amazing to see, because I had kind of prepped her by saying, you know what, you've had this for a while, it's a lot of, covering a large portion of your body. It could take months and months for this to really clear up. So it's kind of managing expectations, but I was amazed at how fast it cleared up for her. And to the point where she had like some mild itching, but her skin was clear within a couple of months. And then, we stayed with those remedies for a little bit longer to completely clear it up. but just seeing the turnaround and seeing somebody go from being so miserable, she didn't want to leave the house because she like felt like, everybody is looking at me because I have this like basically like open wounds all over her skin, to just being able to get back to participating with life and being with her grandkids and doing all those things, and being able to sleep again, which made everything feel better. So just that was one of the coolest. And that happened. It was like I was actually still in APH when I was helping her with that. And so it was really exciting just to get that big of a win, that early on. So that's probably one of my early favorite stories.
That's a good one. That's huge. Because I used to scratch at night till I bled
Yeah.
and just couldn't stop. So that is such a relief for her.
She's using a wire brush to like scratch her back because
Oh my God.
which then I'm like, oh my gosh, infection central. But
She needed one of these.
she did not have one of those. But
Oh,
she did.
that's funny.
So
That's awesome. Oh my God. I know I see people and I'm like, oh no, I just wish, yeah, because a lot of the moms groups, they post the pictures and they're like raw and you just want to like
awful. It's awful.
just drop them a little, try this. Sounds like yesterday I did.
I
I
send
DM'd
pictures
somebody.
all the time. I'm like, we need to help her.
Oh my God, yeah.
Don't
I
even know her. It's just like it's a random Instagram. Or
Yes, the one she had the purple face. You guys all saw her. She was on TikTok. She had that like steroid.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know the one, and then she
Oh,
got the
yeah.
COVID thing, and then it came back. Like she was purple at that point.
Yeah.
Like girlfriend. But you can't always get through them.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Nicole, it's your turn.
So I, like my fellow colleagues here, have so many stories that I could share and that I want to share. But I think because both of them shared chronic things, I'd like to share an acute situation, which I've shared on our podcast before. But Christine, you might appreciate this one because you and I share some of the same lovely diagnoses that cause us to, pass out and have some pretty extreme symptoms. And so I experienced a really crazy episode, where I was in the bathroom, I was in the bathtub, and all of a sudden, like, my ears just started going like wah, 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 and I was like, what the heck's going on with me? Right. And I felt myself like just like sweating and like, I don't know, just all the things. And I stood up and I just felt myself going. Like I just felt like I was going to pass out and I didn't know what was going on. And I walked out of the bathroom and, I said to my husband, I'm like, babe, I don't feel right. And we've been together for over 20 years. He knows that I have chronic illness. So I laugh now and he's like, I've heard that one before. And I'm like, no, 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 you don't understand. Like something is really wrong. And he goes, yeah, I've heard that one before too. And he starts coming over to me and he's like, what do you want me to do? And I was like, I don't know, maybe I just need some water. And he comes over to me and he holds my hand and he goes, your hands are freezing. And I was just like profusely sweating, felt like I was about to pass out, sat down. And all I could say to my husband was, because he's like, what do I do? Do I call 911? And I was like, no, I'm not a big advocate of that. We're gonna go with homeopathy. So alls I could say to him at that point, because I was losing my ability to speak and to function and everything, I said, green kit, downstairs, aconite. That's all I could say to him. And he comes upstairs, and by the time he came upstairs, he put, the kit down in front of me, and all I could do was look at it. I couldn't even move my body at that point to get it in. And luckily he paid attention to me and he put the remedy in my mouth. And immediately when that remedy hit my mouth, I knew that I was going to be fine because you felt it working instantly. But what I didn't know was happening at the time, I actually did pass out very briefly. And in my head, I was telling my husband, oh my, you're doing fine, babe. Like I was coaching him through it because I was worried that he was going to call 911 for me. But I had such confidence in homeopathy and what it was going to help me with. And I knew it was pulling me out of it. And slowly, after this one remedy went in my mouth, all of my senses started to come back. I was able to come to, and I was able to start moving, but it was like a slow progression down my body where, I felt my senses come back. It became more alert. And then I said to my husband, I'm like, babe, I have to go to the bathroom. And he's like, why are you telling me that? And I'm like, because I can't move my legs still. And so eventually, my legs started functioning and I jumped up and I, ran to the bathroom and I was like yelling to my husband. I was like, what the heck was that? Right. And I looked and again, sweating and just pale and all these things. And just that one remedy pulled me out of it. So I just felt like that could have been like a life-threatening moment or a moment that, my husband in fear would have had to call, 911. I would have had to go to the hospital. They probably wouldn't have known what was wrong with me, right? They probably would have, said, oh, maybe your blood pressure dropped too low. Oh, maybe your bath was too hot and sent me on my way. But we had homeopathy to pull us out of that. So that was one of the most profound moments for me that I experienced.
Wow. Yeah. I go to the aconite a lot too for those kind of things. So thank God for aconite, that and apis.
Yes.
When in
Yeah.
doubt, I just take them both.
That was funny because that was going to be like a potential other story that I would share was the apis, but
Yes. Oh my God. Oh, thank God. But oh God. And that reminds me of the when Kevin just had the medical event about a month and a half ago. And I couldn't even get a blood pressure on him. And we talk about it all the time in school. Like when you're panicked, like in the moment, it's hard to like think. So thank God for like my study group. I was like, help! Like, I don't know what to do. But I did the aconite and then I did the carbo veg, the corpse reviver, because I was like, okay, like, cause he couldn't move. Like his eyes were closed, but he was mumbling, but he had no blood pressure. And I was like, well, I don't know what was going on, but I didn't want to call 911. So, because I knew he's not the type, he hasn't been to the doctor in 20 years. So I was like, let's just see how far we could get. And I can always call 911, if I have to. But I did have that much faith in the remedies that I knew. So I gave him, the carbo veg. I gave him China because he works outside in the heat and whatever. And I would say within like, I don't know, I kept giving them, on like maybe like a 10-minute rotation. And he popped up like he was in a dream. And he was like, what just happened? And he was totally fine. And I was like, holy crap. Like it was unbelievable. So if I didn't have it then, I would have definitely been at the emergency room. And then who knows what would have happened from there because he was not going to go willingly. Like, would they have arrested him and brought him to the ambulance? Because he's just not one to really, and he was out of it because he wasn't thinking clearly. And it just helped us avoid a serious situation. And amazingly, he's been fine ever since. So I'm just so thankful because he was really distraught about something that had happened. And even helping him with like the mental part of it has been so successful that knock on wood. That was probably the most, that and the ear polyp that my dog had. That was crazy. Like, because I have the before and after picture, those two were probably, but your story reminded me of Kevin's. And
it's crazy. Like, I feel like people just don't know that about homeopathy, that it can help with, these really severe conditions, chronic, like Sandra shared, like going way back, and Heather's, case of dealing with the chronic issue most of her life, and then these acute severe issues where they come on suddenly, and, you're avoiding an ER trip potentially, especially those of us that are in the medical freedom movement, that we don't always want to run right to the hospital. I always joke with my husband and say, don't send me there, like they're going to kill me there.
well, they could, when you have a complicated situation and they don't necessarily believe you or understand it
Right.
and know like the things that they could give you could make you worse, like it's a scary place to go. I'm
Yeah.
petrified. And that's the peace of mind that homeopathy gave me was I was always terrified that because all these things always happen at night for some reason,
Right.
whether
Again.
yes. And I would always be like, oh my God, we have to go to the emergency room. And now I'm like, I'm stopped. Like that's one place I'm not worried about anymore. So that has been a freedom for sure to have that. So, oh, love that. Okay, do you want to ask the next question, Lisa?
Matter. Do you have one?
Well, oh, did I give you my other ones? Okay, I'll ask. I want to know what your favorite remedies are, and well, one remedy and why.
Because that could take a month.
Yeah.
Remedies.
There's lots of
Again,
One.
one.
That's one. We
Wow.
gotta limit it.
I don't know that I can say just one. I think I have to say two, but I'll go into depth with one. How about
Okay.
that?
That's good.
That's
My
fair.
two favorites are both start with the letter A, Arnica montana and Arum metallicum. And so Arum is the one I'll go into. Arum has changed our lives. Like that remedy is, I don't even know how to say how much I love it. It is, we have had a lifelong, almost lifelong battle in our home, with one person in particular with depression. And nothing. I mean, I was into every natural thing. I milked goats. I ground my own grain. I knew all the things. Like I did all the things. I was a supplement salesperson. Like I knew all the things. We had all the supplements. We had all the knowledge except for homeopathy. And we had done everything for 20 plus years. And then along comes homeopathy. And the very first class I took was the one that everybody says you shouldn't take first because it had to do with the mindfulness course that Joette does. And I did that because I needed to know how to deal with this. And I literally watched it from end to end, like 3 times in a row. And it's like 27 hours of teaching as far as the recordings go. So I watched through I watched through all of it the first week. And then the second week I took notes. And then the third week I watched through it all again. And that's how like dedicated I was. And that's when I found Arum metallicum. And that was in the very, very beginning of 2022 when I had first started my education on homeopathy. And we are still on occasion using Arum metallicum, but I mean, I've got my husband back. Like he's who he is, like his real self. And it's been a really long time coming. So if I were to have to choose, I would say definitely Arum metallicum. But if I were in the apocalypse, I would also have arnica, and you wouldn't be able to wrestle either one of them out of my hand.
I
Yes,
love that.
that is awesome. And that's one of the ones that's helping my husband also. And I have seen, oh my Lord, it's been a miracle. And then I tried to pull back because I was like, oh, and now that was apparent that it was needed still. So we went
Mhm.
back to the schedule that we were on, and it is incredible.
It
could
is
save
an incredible, it's
many-
absolutely incredible. We're down to about once every 2 weeks.
Oh,
But
wow.
we were, we did all the things with it. And I've actually been on 2 different protocols with that. I've been on the one for low testosterone and then also the one for depression. And it's just an incredible remedy that I never would have imagined that something would work the way it has. And it's just been incredible. And I have so many stories of I cannot even tell you. The reason I got into homeopathy was because of his health, particularly. And it's just been incredible.
Awesome. I do want to talk more about Orem one day. So
Yeah,
maybe-
definitely. And I'm sorry, but my dog is huffing at the door to get out of this room. Give me a second.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm gonna let her out.
What about you, Heather?
Well, I'm going to go with the remedy that has kept me headache free for over a year now. I live in Northeast Ohio, so we're near the Great Lakes, and we get a lot of weather that rolls through. And I would get headaches a lot of times when the pressure would change, like when a storm was coming, it was like I always knew a day or so before because the pressure would change and I would have a headache. Sometimes I could kind of function, and other times it would be where I'm literally laying in bed. I'm like, don't touch me, don't talk to me, make it dark, make it silent, like just leave me alone and go away. And like my husband would like tiptoe to the door, be like, do you want some toast? I get you anything. Like it was just, they were bad. Like I couldn't function with them. And so that was one of the remedies that we learned about that is specific to weather related headaches. And I started using that protocol, and probably within a few months, it took a little bit of time, but I have not had a weather related headache. Really haven't had any headaches because that was the main one that I would get. I haven't had a headache since last February 16th, 2024. I've not had it.
Wow.
And there's been a couple of times where we'll have like a big system will come through and I'll start to get this little like, it's not even, it doesn't even hurt, but it's just like a little bit of pressure, like right in the middle of my forehead. And I will like take one and it just melts away. It just goes. So just being able to, and it's like you stop and think about it after a while, and you're like, oh, I haven't had a headache for a long, and I used to track them because I would keep track of how many I had, in a month. So I have it in my phone on my calendar, the last time I had a bad headache. And that's what it says, bad headache.
Wow. And what remedy was it? I missed the name of which one it
Oh,
was.
this Calibicromium.
Oh, oh.
Calibic is what we, shorten it to, but Calibicromium. And yeah, so for weather related headaches, that was amazing for me. And again, to not have them, because, like we're women, like we push through and like we deal with a lot. Like we go through our day as much as we can in spite of a lot of different things, right? We just deal with it and do what we got to do as much as we can. But when I can't even see straight, and so I'm not getting out of bed to deal with anything at that point. And so just to not have to deal with that and to not have had to, pop Excedrin and do all of the things, because usually it would be to the point where I would just get sick, and then it would start to kind of relieve my pain would start to go down. So yeah, not having to deal with that is amazing. So
What a relief. Oh my God. No wonder why you stuck with homeopathy.
Yeah.
that was a big one
Just
for
for
me.
that alone.
But
Yeah.
These stories are life changing. So that's
Yes.
Yeah.
what you guys said in the beginning, that it's life changing, and this
It is.
it is. And when you
really
find that, you
is.
want to share with everyone else.
Yeah. And what sometimes frustrates me is like you'll have someone that you're like a friend that you're trying to help and you tell them what to take, and then like you catch up with them and they stop taking it, but they still have the problem. And I'm like, oh Jesus. Like, I don't know if it's like an ADHD thing that they just kind of like taper. I don't know what it is, but I'm thinking like if they just freaking stuck with it, like it works. It does work.
Well, that's where I think having a homeopath that's working with you is really helpful,
Yeah.
because
You need the communication.
there are so many homeopathic remedies that can deal with each condition, and we know protocols, and those are amazing, and you start there if you have one. But because there are so many and people don't know how it works,
Yeah.
it discourages people if it doesn't work the first time around or whatever, and they think it's like taking a Tylenol, and it's not. It doesn't work that way. Even though we have amazing stories, like my journey with Aura Metallicum is a long and sordid tale. It's not like something that just happened overnight. We saw some pretty fast relief in maybe 3 or 4 weeks, but it was nowhere near done. I mean, not even close. And I think people don't get that. And so that's where they kind of stop too soon.
Yeah.
And that's where it's really nice to have a community of people at the very least that can help you, or of course a professional homeopath. And anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there. I know you haven't answered the question yet, so
Yeah, sure, for sure.
That's what I was going to say through my experience in the alternative healthcare field, is that I was just telling someone today, is that when we're little, we are ingrained from where we're little that no matter what you have, a pill's going to fix it.
Yeah.
And so I really think that's the mentality of Americans. It's just the pill will fix it. And yeah, medicine works quicker. But it's just really, we all know, just hitting that surface symptom and unfortunately turning a lot of things off and on. so, or really turning things off. But so that's what I think the mentality is. Even when I help people, I try to, explain to them that the body healing itself isn't just with a pill within, 14 days,
And they don't realize what they're
results
doing.
really fast. And I think managing their expectations, like Heather said, is
Yeah.
super challenging because it's just, school taught us it, the television taught us it, the think about the what do I call the ads, you have this problem, just take this. So
I know, and
I don't know, that's how I feel. It's such a hard thing.
they don't realize that by taking that medication, they're just suppressing. Like, I didn't know that. I thought I was going to
Yeah.
get better.
It's-
Like,
it's off literally, there's down regulation, but then there's like literally shutting off an enzyme, which is
yeah,
insane.
you're stuffing it down, and that
Right.
is not the way for,
It's the difference between stimulating your body to do what it ought to do on its own and
Totally.
coming in and taking it over and being like, you do this, you do this.
Yeah.
It's a very, so we always say that homeopathy is quite polite. Comes in, it asks permission, and then it gently encourages your body to do what it ought to do. And suppressive medicines do just the opposite. They come in with a heavy hand, they punch it down, and it's a completely different system of medicine that is not actually working at a healing level most of the time. I'm not saying none of them do, but most of them are not working on a level that actually stimulates healing. And that's the big difference. It takes time to stimulate healing, usually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in sharing what my favorite remedy is, because like you guys, like I had a hard time narrowing it down, but I think like Dr. Lisa, like you made me think the conventional world wants this quick fix to everything. We've been told like we have to take a medicine for everything, and that's why for me my favorite remedy, even though that there's a lot of them that I would choose, is Apis, right? And the reason why I think Apis is because, you said before that this could be life changing, but it could also be life saving, right? And so Apis can actually help stop an allergic reaction. And for me, that was just so profound learning that, I have a peanut allergic son that has anaphylactic allergies. And so I don't know, just experiencing all these different modalities and these different natural ways of healing and, conventional ways of healing. There is no other natural remedy that can stop an allergic reaction, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the only modality of medicine that you don't need to use conventional medicine, right? If you don't have access to an EpiPen or you don't want to go the conventional route, that we can actually use Apis for. And so that's why like narrowing it down for me, Apis would be such a huge one. And I've seen it work, with my own brother. My niece was having an allergic reaction to a conventional medicine. She was constipated, and my brother, who's not holistic minded at all, um, always calls me when he's in trouble. So he didn't call me for help when she was constipated, and I could have gave him a remedy for that. He called me when she started developing hives, and the pediatrician was like, just give her some Benadryl, right? And when he called me, I'm like, she's 4 years old. It's 10 o'clock at night. If you give that kid Benadryl, like she's probably gonna pass out, right? But if this turns into full-blown anaphylaxis in the middle of the night, like she could die, right? And I was like, I'm not trying to scare you, but that's the reality of allergies, right? We don't know how it's going to affect the system. And, so I just told him, I'm like, put her in the car, meet me. He would have had to go to the doctor to get sorry, the a store to get Benadryl anyway because he didn't own it, and I said, I have Benadryl on me. I have EpiPens on me, but I have this remedy, Apis, that could help. So I said, put her in the car, I'll meet you halfway, and I'll bring everything and we could try whichever one, you feel more comfortable with. So she gets to me, she's covered in hives, she's itching, with her throat, she's itching her elbow. And within like one dose of Apis, everything started to clear up, right? And so it's just such a quick acting medicine sometimes, especially when these conditions are so severe, something like anaphylaxis, that it's just, to me, Apis is like, we don't go anywhere without it. So
No,
I
I
just
don't
love
go
it.
anywhere without Apis or aconite. I can't
Yeah.
even, like down the street, like,
It's
Yeah.
the five A's.
Right.
I'm
yeah.
sorry,
What'd you say?
Sandra, what did you just say?
It's the 5 A's.
Okay.
Arnica, arsenicum,
Yeah.
apis, um, ah,
And
night, and what was the fifth one? I can't remember the fifth one.
is it on our shirt?
Maybe.
It's not.
It's not the Orem, is it?
No, it wouldn't be Orem. I can't think of it. I don't know why. It is
But
5
there
A's.
are a lot of good A's.
I'm having a hard time remembering it right now, but it is definitely the 4 A's.
And there's probably another
There's a
one.
fifth one somewhere. That's funny.
Another thing too that I don't know that everybody knows, because I didn't know this until we were going through APH, was that giving someone, like, for years, my mom she was stung by, it wasn't by bees, but by wasps. And she had a pretty severe reaction skin wise to them. And she didn't have, like the anaphylaxis with her throat, but her, like she really, like the welts that she got from them was pretty severe. And I was telling her, I said, you just never know. Like you could get stung 100 times. And that 101st time is the time that you have that full blown anaphylactic reaction.
True.
And so I was always like, keep Benadryl in your drawer, like the liquid, keep it in your drawer so that if you, get stung, you can do this really fast. Well, what we learned was that if you take Benadryl and then it's not acting enough and you need your EpiPen, the Benadryl will stop the EpiPen from working.
Yeah.
And so that, like, if you need an EpiPen, you need an EpiPen. Like,
Yes.
you'd have to use it. Yes, you still have to seek medical care if you use your EpiPen, but just the Benadryl thing, like, I did not know that. And so I like to make people aware of that, like, don't think that Benadryl is your first line of defense. And then, oh, if it doesn't work, you can jump to your EpiPen. Don't do that.
Heather, I love that you brought that up because
I know
most
that.
allergy moms know this information, but the mainstream public doesn't know that information. And that's why I was like scaring the pants off my brother, basically to get him to take action because I'm like, a doctor is telling you to give your 4-year-old Benadryl. And I'm like, there's something called a rebound effect with Benadryl too, where it calms the system down enough to stop the alert, right? It makes you think, okay, all right, yeah, she's fine, she's good. Let's put her to bed now. It's 10 o'clock.
You whacked the fire alarm off, the smoke alarm
Right,
off.
right. And then what happens is if this allergic reaction decides to come back full force and it was anaphylaxis in the middle of the night, nobody would know
Yep.
because you thought you solved the problem by giving her Benadryl and putting her to bed, right?
And the difference between Benadryl and Apis is that Apis is actually promoting the elimination of that reaction.
Yeah, for the
And so I kind of wanted to throw that in there because, if you don't know anything about homeopathy, you might be, okay, well, isn't Apis doing the same thing? I mean, she's getting better, right? So the difference is that when you give Benadryl, it's suppressing symptoms.
right.
And when you give Apis, even if those symptoms were to come back, they're going to come back at a lower level than they were there originally, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So even if in the night she does get some hives again, it's not going to escalate to a worse level than it was originally. So
Right.
that's where there's a big difference between suppressing and stimulation of the immune system. So
That's
I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, so that people aren't confused if they've, if they're new to homeopathy.
I think
Yeah.
that's a great point because the way we're taught, right, you're just going to think that the homeopathic remedy is just replacing the Benadryl. So they do the same thing, right?
Right.
But they don't.
So that I'm glad you brought that up.
Mhm.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot with fevers too, and with Tylenol, right? It's the same thing. A lot of times we want to avoid giving Tylenol for a fever because we know that there's side effects of Tylenol. But some of us know also that fever is a good thing, right? And that we want the body to have the fever to eliminate, the pathogen, right? And a lot of times Tylenol will suppress the body's ability to have that fever, and we can give homeopathic remedies, and what we do is we're not suppressing the actual fever like the Tylenol would. We're
No.
actually stimulating the body back into balance so that the body can heal and it no longer needs to show the symptom of the fever. Right? So it's in the same thing that Sandra just described, right? We're not replacing the medicine with the homeopathy. We're actually able to use the homeopathy to stimulate the body into its God-given, ability to heal itself. And that's what I think is missing, not only in the conventional world, but even in the holistic world sometimes. Right? And so that's why we're so passionate about sharing what homeopathy can truly do for people, because this is not taught to the general public as an option. And that's kind of our mission with the three of us here, is that we're trying to share that with other people.
Yeah, we look at symptoms very differently than conventional or even holistic modalities look at symptoms, right? That's our guide. That's what we use to help find the correct remedy to restore that balance. So
Absolutely.
when we, whether it's an anaphylactic reaction or a fever or a skin rash or whatever it is,
Mhm.
we're using that as like a guide. And we actually, we don't enjoy the symptoms for the sake of, because you're miserable. We
Right.
look at symptoms as a gift to help us point us in the direction that we need to go to find you the correct remedy so that you can bring balance back to your body.
Because it is the evidence.
That's
The
so
lack
right.
of the symptom is the evidence that the stimulation of the immune system is actually working.
Yep.
Whereas when you use a suppressive medicine, it's not evidence of that. It's just evidence that you've suppressed it.
Mhm.
I think another great point, I think Nicole said, I'm not sure, but you're all together, is the side effects. So medicine has, we don't call them in chiropractic school, we just call them effects. We
Yep.
never allowed to call them side effects because nothing's being done on the side.
Mhm.
So you know how you have off-label drugs? Like the same drug can do many things.
Yep.
Right.
People have this misconception when you take a medication, it only targets one thing. It doesn't, it's a cascade of events that happen. So, and I know plants do some, they have a cascade of events, but we have negative side effects with Benadryl has a lot of, long-term bad side effects. And I
Yeah.
wanted to bring that up only because I see it a lot with the moms. They run to that for a lot of the allergy issues, even if it's seasonal. I've even heard moms say, "Oh, I'll give it to him on the plane so he sleeps." And I'm just like, "Oh my goodness, there's such big
Yeah.
consequences to long-term Benadryl when you're older." Like now they're linking it to Alzheimer's and things like that. So what's the trade-off,
Right.
Right. I would much rather have some uncomfortable symptoms for a while I'm troubleshooting what homeopathic remedy might work for me than to have short-term suppression of those symptoms and long-term health issues in the future.
Yeah.
Amen.
I want to bring that
Absolutely.
up. That's a huge difference. Because when I have talked about a little history with my kids. I always ran to this little health food store here, and they had like the little pellets, like it's like a cubby hole where they all were. And we didn't have much here, in the year.
Boiron rat.
What?
The Boiron rats.
Boron ones, yeah. And then, Pete and I would look up the symptoms of what the kids would have. And so he would treat his kids and I would treat mine. And we always did homeopathy, but it was very raw, very just like looking up. We didn't have the internet. It was just kind of like looking up symptoms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I felt like that was the way to go too.
It was.
Having it
You
from
were, You were the smart one.
Well, I was just lucky to land into the chiropractic world. And then everyone in school, we all were different people. There was homeopaths, there was, massage therapists, acupuncture. So I was just lucky to fall into that world young.
Yeah.
But
And that's kind of where
I didn't
our
know anything
podcast,
flying across, moving across the country. I was,
that
I went
helped.
to a gang, and when I went, I didn't know anything going there.
Yeah. But that's why I wanted to do this, was because I just want moms to know, because I didn't know that that was an option. And here we were, the more medication we took, the sicker we got. It was allergies, and then it was asthma, and then it was, and it just kept snowballing. And I just want young moms to know that there's alternatives that aren't going to exacerbate health issues. They're going to, put an end to them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
So,
think that's one of the biggest things that people find when they come to homeopathy. When I use the word uproot, right?
yeah.
Uproot, they're like, "Oh, I never heard anyone say that before," right? Because in the conventional world, it's like you're managing your illness, and there's potential side effects to these medications, and
And then
and
another
right. And then in the holistic world, we try to do, a better job than the conventional world does, right? We try to, support and supplement the body, but this is a conversation that Heather and Sandra and I have had too, is just like how the conventional world is kind of infiltrating the holistic world too, right? It's kind of scaring people into, well, if it's Lyme disease, that's when you have to give the antibiotic, or when it's strep throat, that's when you have to give the antibiotic because you don't want to deal with PANS or PANDAS, right? Yeah, or the supplements, right? I mean, supplements were meant to do just that, supplement your body during a difficult time of imbalance. But really, the main issue is that there's an imbalance within your body that we should be able to be eating healthy food and extrapolating the nutrients, right? We should be able to eat foods and not have to avoid them because we're having allergic reactions or gut symptoms or all those things. But we're getting so far away from that because we're so sick, right? We're so toxic. And most people don't know what homeopathy is and know that it could put that balance back in, and you could live a lifestyle that isn't, just taking all of these medications and or even supplements for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
I love that you say that because I'm in functional, and I have this argument amongst many functional people, and Christine and I talked about this. I have patients that come in, and I have this argument with my other, colleagues, and I don't like to give a lot because the supplement job is just me picking a plant that's going to help support a system and help that system heal. But they have that mentality of taking that pill, and they're like, this pill's going to fix me. I'm like, listen, you can't take a plant to detoxify your liver. You're going to support the liver's ability to detoxify. So a lot of times functional turns into, and Christine and I've talked about this, is now we're giving supplements we're behaving just like medicine, and it's very complicating, or frustrating for me, but the MDs will complicate it. Like you said, now you need pandas, now you need, and then they throw antibiotics at me, and it's like this big mess.
Yeah.
And they miss this whole thing where, especially when we look at older people, a lot of these medicines, methotrexate, the statins, the things I deal with, they're horrific drugs. Like they
Oh yeah. Statins are
really
horrible.
bad. And these elder people, I don't even say elder because it's usually once you hit 50 and 60, they start putting you on 3 pills, 4 pills.
Yeah.
And then the functional's trying to throw some supplements. Well, that'll do that, or that'll do that. And that's why I love homeopathy, because I always said to Christine, I was like, yeah, it's just missing the beat of the fact that all these elders and all these medications can really be replaced. I hate to say replaced, but what you guys are explaining it very well. Like,
And
Yeah.
they
it's such a
also,
cluster. It's like, it's
Yes.
like,
they,
oh,
they also change the levels, like the blood
oh,
pressure, the normal
I
used to
deal with that
be
all the time.
higher.
Yeah.
The statins, that,
Cholesterol.
yeah, all used to
Yeah.
be higher. Now they're lowering it so they can write more scripts and more scripts.
Well,
And
if
it's,
everybody is high, then you're part of that circle.
And imagine that the instance of heart attacks and strokes has not gone down,
Yeah,
even though how long have we had statins now?
shut up.
At least 20 years. I don't know how long. I don't know when they first came out. We've had them a really long time. This whole concept of cholesterol causing this stuff has been out there for a long time. In the meantime, my farmer uncle who lived on bacon and eggs and all the things they tell you not to eat lived to be 140 years old. Like, how do you look at that situation? You say, all of my farmer, relatives
Yeah.
who ate so much fat, I mean, like unbelievable amounts of fat, are the ones that are living to be over 100 years old. And all of these other people who've been on statins for the last 20 years are now dying way earlier than my farmer relatives did. How do you reconcile that? And it's like no one's looking at the evidence because we have such a high level of trust in our medical system that no one's asking questions. And that just drives me crazy. I'm like, why have we put all this trust in a system that is obviously failing? I don't understand it.
And it's some of it's common sense. Like there was saying about like low salt diet, low salt diet, low salt diet. But then when something happens, what do? They give you the IV and pump you full of salt.
put
And how
salt
come
in
that's
you.
not killing you? Like you just have to really question because it's obvious when you really kind of just, think about it critically. But, we just became, I don't know what the word is, apathetic, just like,
Well, we also have an educational system that's poured into that as well. So it's a whole thing. It's not just one little microcosm of things happening. I mean, why did I homeschool? Part of the reason I homeschooled is because I wanted my children to know how to think critically.
yes.
And one of the very first things that my son said to me when he called from boot camp is, "Mom, no one here knows how to think. It's scary." Like, and
Yeah,
I
and they
mean,
want to
he's
tell you how to
19 years
homeschool
old
your
and
kids.
he's figured that out. And it's like, okay, well, I may not have been the best teacher in all the subjects, but my kids know how to have a lucid, independent thought.
And that counts for a lot these days.
Yes.
Right. I think that that is just kind of like the main idea, right? Is like everybody can have differing thoughts, but just to be able to think for yourself, right? And to know that you have choices, right? Because I feel like in the mainstream world, we're not taught to think that we have choices, right? It's like, Heather and I were talking about this a lot with our students recently. It's like in the conventional world, it's like you do this or you do nothing, right? And in our household, I've had to tell my husband, like, listen, just because we're not doing what the mainstream would do doesn't mean we're not doing anything. It's just our thing is different and it's very different. And a lot of people aren't aware of homeopathy and the level of what it can do. So it doesn't mean that we're wrong. It just means that nobody really knows what it is and nobody was taught to think in this way. So I love that you guys are having us on so that we could kind of share that with the medical freedom movement too, because it's just to us, it's so important to get that across to, even the holistic moms and the medical freedom moms that they have choices,
Mhm.
right? Where
Because there's a lot of them that don't know about this modality.
right,
There's
look
a
at
lot of
what
them out there fighting for freedom, like Nicole just said, but they don't necessarily know that there is an actual alternative to doing nothing in certain situations. So
right,
I for one, I don't love hospitals. I don't love to do that. I know people who would rather die than go to a hospital. What if you knew what to do instead of dying? Wouldn't
right.
that be nice?
Exactly. Why is that the other choice?
And so but even me, like I went back to school for holistic nursing. I didn't know what homeopathy was. They didn't teach me that there. You know what I mean? So it's just really, it's such a buried modality. It's such a buried system of medicine and just some of the things that we've all shared today that homeopathy can help with, right? It's not just for bumps and bruises and teething babies or colds and such. It can really like save a life or change your life or help with chronic ailments that you've been suffering with for years or from years ago. And it can pull you out of some really crazy, life-threatening acute ailments.
It can do all kinds of things. My mom is taking homeopathy for diabetes.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to take metformin.
I
Right.
think you guys nailed it with when you go to conventional, it's this or this. But so you have a choice to do something or nothing. But the nothing is, I wanted it when you said that, I was like, it's also topped with fear. Because it's like,
Right.
do nothing, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So then you're gonna do you're not gonna do that one, right? You're gonna do
Have a choice.
Right. Right.
Choice, but to do what they're offering.
It's not really a choice. That's the whole
not.
bottom line.
It's like you do this or I won't be your
Or
doctor.
you die.
To die. Yeah. And so now you're like, oh, well, okay, I'll take that metformin or I'll take that, blood pressure pill.
Right. Even
That's
though the side effects include death on that pill that you're recommending, we'll just,
Yeah.
My
yeah.
dad has had a lot of stuff. And the recent thing is he's got little skin cancers going. And he went to his doctor and he goes, oh, that's from your heart medicine. And my dad goes, oh.
So what's
I was
the
like, don't worry about it. You're old, like it's basil, it won't really get anywhere. And so I'm like, why your heart medicine causes skin cancer? And the doctor said many of them do. So I never knew that.
Who knew?
Yeah, it's not the sun.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Yeah, but these are the things they don't tell you, you know?
Because it thins your skin, it thins your blood. He had this whole big thing, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't know that. I don't know if you guys know that, but his heart, he had a heart attack 55, and he's gone the whole medical route, 2 open heart surgeries. And,
Wow.
it's very hard to help your own family. But my point was, now he's got skin cancer, and he's getting all these things removed, and he had half his ear cut. And he's like, oh, the doctor told me it's from my medicine. And I was like, what?
And we just accept it, right? People just,
So
they
he
just
accepted it, but I was like, back up there. Like, skin
Yeah.
cancer is huge right now. And I was like, you're telling me it's caused by the medicines that they give you? He's like, yeah, that's what he said. It wasn't
Wow.
because it's like in his ear, it's like in a weird spot.
Hey, we have a medicine for that.
Yeah. Right, we got a protocol.
There's a protocol for that.
That's what I love. Like, I don't think people know that the medicines they're taking have this trifecta of, a cascade of negative things that happen later. And then
right.
the
And even if
doctors
they
just
know,
say,
they don't know what to do instead.
Right.
right.
I mean,
That's
we have that issue, and we had this big discussion because my husband has had strokes and they were wanting him to go on Eliquis. And he's like, I don't want to go on this. What if I didn't know about homeopathy?
You wouldn't have a
But
choice.
he doesn't have to because we know what to do instead.
Right.
And it's like, how freeing is that? Talk
empowering.
about medical freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, that is medical freedom because it doesn't just go at the level of
Amen.
what's the law. It goes at the level of how am I empowered
right.
to do the things for my family that I know will not hurt them and instead will uproot the issues that we're dealing with and make us healthier as people.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate freedom.
That is.
And if anything was going to wake people up, I honestly feel like it should have been, COVID, because of what happened to the people in the hospitals. And now yesterday with that verdict of that woman that was given the DNR that she didn't have. And
Oh, that's a heartbreaking story.
mentally handicapped, and they basically, whatever. I don't want to go to the hospital. I wanted to be able to treat the COVID when I first get it because they weren't giving people anything. Anybody that's dealt with upper respiratory infections, like chronically, that there are options, but they weren't giving them to people because they wanted them to end up in the hospital. Like, that is just sinister to
They
me.
got a little bit of an incentive there, didn't they? $40
Yes.
a person for everybody
So,
to get on a ventilator.
I
I
mean,
mean,
remdesivir, which they have a history of it being horrific. Like, and ivermectin, which has an amazing history. So they were literally choosing to give people like one of the worst medicines versus one that's, I mean, for
like,
good
how do you
medicine, they were choosing really bad stuff.
Yep.
how do they send them away knowing what's going to happen to them? That takes like
Yeah.
Well, how many people do you know that used to have hospital privileges that no longer do? There's your clue.
Yep.
When I know several doctors and several nurses that no longer have hospital privileges. because
Okay.
they refused to do what they knew was killing people during COVID. And you tell some people that, and they absolutely refuse to believe it. But here's the thing, your audience knows what's up, right?
Yeah.
So this gives them a choice
Right.
Yes.
to actually have something. You've got somebody that's got COVID or has got some other thing that isn't, a car accident that requires surgery.
Yeah.
There are so many options to help.
Yes.
And you may very well avoid the hospital. And if you're worried about it, go sit in the parking lot while you take the homeopathy. Go
Mhm.
sit in the parking lot of the ER and take that homeopathy, see if it works. I'm going to say something very vulnerable because I think it might help some people. I am pretty sure I had a heart attack a few weeks ago. I have still not gone to the doctor to find out, because when I took the medicine that stops a heart attack, it stopped and it went away. And I've never had the feeling before again. And that's power.
Yeah.
I was in another city. I had no idea. I didn't want to go to a hospital I didn't know in a city I'm not familiar with. It was the middle of the night. And I was like, I'm taking this stuff. And if it works, I'm going back to bed. And that's what I did. And it worked. And I talked to a nurse friend. She's like, yeah, I'm 90% sure that you had a heart attack. And I'm like, okay, well, now I know I need to probably eat better and do things different, exercise more, whatever. But I'm saying that because that's an extreme situation that happened to myself. I decided, I made that decision that I wasn't going to do that. And I'm not telling people to do that. I was in a foreign city, that not foreign, but a city I didn't know, in a situation I didn't know, and I didn't want to go to the hospital. Had I been at home, I probably would have driven to the hospital and sat in the parking lot, like I was just saying. But the point being that there is power in knowledge.
Yeah.
And that is what we're trying to impart to people, so that they don't have to settle for doing something that they know may also put their life in further jeopardy.
Mhm.
And that's exciting to me. I want to shout it from the rooftops.
Or doing nothing, like you said, because now people might think your story is extreme, but I'm sure there's many people out there who are too afraid to go to the hospital, or they just
Oh,
do nothing. So you're giving them a solution to do something.
right. I know a lot of husbands that would refuse to go to the hospital.
Oh yeah.
And for whatever reason, maybe not even because they don't believe in it, they just refuse.
Great.
What
Yeah.
if you could be like, well, will you at least do this? It's
Mm.
just a few pellets that go under your tongue. You might save their life. So there's so many reasons to know this stuff. So many reasons to know this stuff. And you don't have to go to homeopathy school. You don't have to be a professional. There's so much knowledge you can get just from being in a community like this one.
Mhm. So part of my allergic reaction and my love for Apis story kind of just has to do with what you guys are saying about the do nothing, right? During COVID, I was at a vendor event and I was doing a workshop and I was sharing my brother's story and sharing my niece's reaction with the Apis. And I kid you guys not, that half an hour later, one of the women that was registered for my workshop comes over to my table and she says, I know we just met and I don't really know you, but my niece is having an allergic reaction right now. And she's like, can you help us? And I was like, okay. And like, I'm like walking to her tent with the Apis and I'm like, tell me what's going on. She's like, she's was diagnosed with allergies, but she's never had an allergic reaction. We have the EpiPens, but we're too afraid to go to the hospital right now because of COVID times. They didn't want to have to use the EpiPen because they were told if they use the EpiPen, then they have to go to the hospital.
Mhm.
They were trying to look for that other option, that other choice, right? They had the EpiPen in the background, so if they needed to use that, they could, but there was this other choice that was presented to them that wasn't there before. And so I walk over, and this 2-year-old little girl had gotten a hold of a bag of sour cream and onion potato chips, and she ate one. and her eye was swelling and she had a hive on her cheek, and she was clearly having an allergic reaction. And I looked at the mom and I said, listen, you're gonna have to be the one to get this in her. Like, I can't give it to her, but if we can get this in her, then it could maybe stop. So we finally got the well, I say finally, it felt like a lifetime. It really was like seconds, right? But we get the remedy in her, and the dad picks her up and walks away because she's upset because this crazy lady's in her tent, and like, she's having this allergic reaction, and we just made her take this sugar pellet, right? And so the dad walks away with her and he's consoling her, and the mom and the aunt are looking at me. They're like, "How long will it take?" And I was like, "It should only be like a few seconds. Like, we'll check on her again and make sure like she's doing well." Literally maybe like a minute later, the dad walks back with her. She's not crying anymore. The swelling went down from her eye. The hive completely disappeared. She was kind of just like scratching in the area where the hive was. We got another dose in her. And then we all cried because we were like, what just happened, right? Like, what did we just potentially avoid? And how empowering that was to that family, where it wasn't do this or do nothing, right? Where you were faced with the solution that you didn't want to choose versus, oh my God, my child could essentially die from this, right? But because I shared that story about homeopathy and apis and how it can stop an allergic reaction, it gave them another choice, right? And that's what we're missing in this world. We're missing that choice instead of the, here's your one option or you're gonna die, right? So
Unbelievable. And also too, I don't fear any variants. Like they're like, oh, this one's coming out, or this is coming out, and this, and then the smallpox, and this, whatever it is, we got it. So
Yeah, we're
it's
good.
like, I'm not falling for any of that crap anymore.
yeah.
You don't need to.
No.
You don't have to at all. I
So
gave my
empowering.
kids a little kit that says open during apocalypse.
I want that kid.
The truth.
We need to
It's
sell
amazing.
it.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
I don't like to sell the medicines because
I
then
know.
it seems like
Oh,
I'm telling
yeah.
people to do something I profit from. I mean, that's what it irritates
Well,
me
you could
about.
set up the
Yeah.
set up protocols
Now
and
that
everything.
kits are kind of different. That's kind of different.
Yeah.
But it still is.
We make cheat sheets that way you can put your own kit together.
Yes, we make
Our
cheat
sheet
sheets.
One of
sheets,
the
We need
things
an apocalypse cheat sheet.
We
Book.
do. We have an apocalypse cheat sheet
There we go.
in our membership.
Yeah. That's
So,
awesome. Yeah,
we
tell-
we have had you guys on. It's been a while, but
Yeah.
it's been this is one of the best podcasts. This is amazing. But tell us where the listeners can find you, about your membership, about your cheat sheets, all of it. Your
Okay.
podcast.
Okay, so our membership is called the Homeopathy Help Hotline membership. And we actually are just getting ready to run a sale because we are celebrating the concept of health freedom and medical freedom. And so in the whenever this drops for your listeners, even if it's this week, basically from now until the end of July, we're selling it for $17.76 a month.
Okay.
Isn't that clever?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so
Oh, I get it. Like,
Wait a
oh,
minute.
I'm like, come on.
It's been a long day.
$17.76 a month. It's normally $39.99 a month. So that's a huge discount. And inside the membership, you'll find all sorts of recordings. We have hours and hours and hours of recordings of trainings. We have the homeopathy cheat sheets, which are PDFs you can download that have things like it's
like
just
apocalypse.
different topics. We have like 6 of them now, I think. That go through different things. Like we have the drugstore guide to homeopathy that lists all the things you can find at CVS and Walmart. And then it's got, then we've got the survivalist one for the apocalypse and things like that. We have workshops that we only release to the membership. So we recently did one on immunization. And we're getting ready to do another one on what's the next one we're doing? I can't remember. What?
Pets.
Pets. Yes, everybody has pets and they all want to know how to help them with homeopathy. So we do all of that, and we have 3 live calls every month where people can show up, be a part of the community, ask questions. Even if you have something that's you're dealing with in your family, we can talk it through. It's really, really cool. And we also, oh, and if you want to get to that membership, it's simplehopeopathywellness.com/membership is the website. And then we also have a foundations course that we're starting in August. And it is, foundational information about homeopathy and, the basics that you need to know to get started with using homeopathy in your family. And that website is simplehopeopathy.com/foundations-for-all-1.
I'll put them below.
Yeah.
So that is those are the 2 things that we're offering for people right now. And then of course we have our podcast, which is the Simple Hopeopathy podcast. So we're doing a lot.
You guys are
around here.
busy. Yes, and you're all busy just in your own practices too. I don't know how you do it all, but
Well,
you're going to school.
my husband is constantly yelling across the house, "Work!"
Wait, what did he say?
He constantly yells that I'm a workaholic.
Oh yeah, I know. Mine gets jealous sometimes. He's like, "You're always on, what?" I'm like, "Listen, I can only do so much in a
We're out
day."
here saving the world, people.
Yeah.
And
I know
my kids are like staring me down as we talk about this.
No, yeah, they're like, "We want to go outside. It's a beautiful day."
Right.
Aw, I'm so
Oh.
glad you guys came on. This is
I
awesome.
Really fun.
Having this.
Thank
We'll
you
have to do it
Awesome.
again.
for having
You-
us. This is
Plenty of other questions to ask. So next time we'll have more
We'll
time.
have to do a part 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye.
Have a great day, everybody.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.